Make it happen while you still got a chance. Make it happen, do a little dance.
Make It Happen is a podcast for people on the edge. It's for church leaders, whether clergy, staff, or volunteer, who need a boost of courage to make something new happen for the sake of growth and renewal in their local church. My name is Dan Bracken. I am the communication director at Ginghamsburg United Methodist Church in Tip City, Ohio. John Worlidge is my co-host. Say hello, John. He's our online campus director. And we've got snacks today, so if you hear us ripping in and chewing, you know what's happening. It's lunchtime. Here we go. In this episode, we are continuing our conversation about AI, artificial intelligence, with the great Jason Moore. Jason is an artist, an author, a coach, and all-around great guy who's been making waves in the church since the early 90s when it comes to innovation, technology, and creative expressions. Jason, welcome back, dude.
Hey, it is good to be here, and you have snacks, which is awesome.
Yeah, man. So we know the AI world is changing almost daily. So let's start with this. What's the most recent exciting development?
Oh, man. I have lost so much time in the last week to a new program. I sent you some stuff called Udio, which is like studio minus the S. And it is an AI music generator, which is scary good. I had been using Suno for a while. In fact, I'm a subscriber, and I have thousands and thousands of credits. And I was impressed with what it could do. Like, I was like, this is almost really, really good. And sometimes you'd get something and it was like, that's pretty close. But this Udio thing is unbelievable. It is so... I've played around. I've made a barbershop quartet. I've made an orchestrated piece. You can, on a whim, take a memory from childhood. I did that, a little story about my sister and I. Made a song, told it I want it to be warm and nostalgic and all that. Sent it to my sister, and she's like, "You have me in tears." And, there's a song that somebody else created that I have listened to so many times because it's got these really great harmonies. And what's kind of fun about it is you can actually remix that track and make your own version of it, or you can extend it. So the song that's 2 minutes long, I like it enough that I hit extend a few times and made like a 5-minute version of it that I, was listening to in the background. So anyway, I've got to stay. It's like, it's a little bit become a bit of an addiction.
The song you sent me was hilarious because it was literally about how creepy of a tool this was.
Yes, I made a song called Udio, You Freak Me Out, yeah. And Yet You're Cool. And when we're done, I can I'll play it for you, John, since you haven't heard it probably. But
yeah. So I know. So things are changing every day, right? And I know you're in the middle of writing a book too, which has been challenging because things are changing so rapidly. Just give us a lay of the land with your book. What's the general summary? What's the book's title? When do you anticipate it being released?
Oh, those are all good questions. Well, let me start. Let me go back just a touch and say that in the fall, maybe even late summer, I was in conversation with my publisher about doing a follow-up to my book on hybrid worship about hybrid hospitality. But I had been so dug in on AI stuff that I said to my publisher, after I write this book, I really need to write one on AI. And I said, it might even make more sense for me to do that now. And at the time, and again, this may have even been earlier in the year, my publisher was like, maybe, it seems like kind of a niche thing. I'm not sure. But we had a conversation and I shared a bunch of stuff with him and we were texting back and forth. And the next day he was like, I'm really convinced that this AI thing is what you should do next. And then it really started to explode. We started seeing more and more people post about it and talk about it. And Carey Nieuwhof started, talking about it and so on and so forth. So it was originally due in December. But the challenge is, as you said, it is moving so fast. And there have been times that I have written an entire section, and then like 2 days later, the technology changes so much that I have to more or less wipe out the whole section and be like, I have said before, it's sort of like writing a really great tutorial on how to rub sticks together to make fire. And you look for these conditions, and if you rub the sticks in this way, and then the next day they come out with lighters, and you're like, well, nobody needs a tutorial on how to rub sticks together anymore. So I have been working on it. What it entails is it's a pretty comprehensive sort of overview of AI. I talk first about what AI is for the people who are like, I don't even know what the curious folks. I did a seminar recently, and someone said, I thought AI stood for artificial insemination. And I'm like, that is not what this seminar is about today. Not animal husbandry or, whatever, any of that thing. But kind of helping people understand what AI is. Also recognizing that AI has been around for a very, very long time. The first chatbot came out in the late 60s. So ChatGPT is just the latest of a long line of things, but obviously more sophisticated. From there, I kind of move into biblical foundations, like why biblically is this okay, and why can we lean in, and I think it's important that we know our why before we do our what and our how. And I can't help but think about Jesus gives us, or God gives us, this creative mandate, tells us to be fruitful and multiply, and basically to have dominion over all the things of the earth. And I think AI fits into that category. But then in Exodus, when they're building the temple, there's this really great line where Bezalel, who is building the temple, it says, instilled within him was a divine spirit that allowed him to all of the intelligence and artistry to craft, wood and stones and all those kind of things. And I think that extends to prompts and programming and all of that. But anyway, get into that. And then I really kind of do a deep dive into the ethical concerns. While I am very much a proponent of AI, I also think we have to be measured. We have to be purposeful. We have to be careful. I think, have to exercise restraint, because when you see what it can do, it would be very easy to just sort of farm out our ministry to AI in many different regards. You can say to AI, write me a sermon, and it'll write it, and it'll be a terrible sermon. It'll be shallow. But if you know how to talk to it, you can do a few things, a few prompts, and actually have it write a sermon. And my concern is just, we don't want to give our agency over to AI. We want to be mindful of the fact that we are co-creators with the Spirit. I just actually talked to my publisher about this 2 days ago, and I said, I have been thinking about, I really stress hard in the book that it's a balancing act, or that we have to use it in a balanced way. So I said, I don't know if it's a tightrope walker or if it's a teeter-totter or a scale or whatever, but I want to, throughout the book, I try to give here's the positive and all the ways we can lean in. And then here are the things we have to consider. And those are really serious. And ultimately I come out on the side of being a proponent, but not willy-nilly, and all those things. Although interestingly enough, as I'm doing speaking engagements, I have had some educational institutions reach out, and I actually was supposed to next week, but they moved it to the fall. I had a church leader hear me talk about this. I did an hour keynote at an event, and he's bringing me down to Albany, Georgia, to do an event for church leaders, but they're inviting the Chamber of Commerce and business leaders. And, they said, we understand that you're going to have a church bent to this, but we think our community could actually benefit from this conversation. So, and then I'm also doing something in the fall not in the fall, in May actually, for the Ohio Writers Association. So it'll be mostly secular people. But a friend of mine in the church knew that I was using it to write and how to use it, in a responsible way there. So certainly can talk about that in the secular world as well.
So one reason I like having John on this podcast is because he's like our researcher. He actually listens to podcasts where I don't.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if
So
I should say that. Producing a podcast.
Does that mean you'll never hear this?
Yeah. I'll hear it when I edit it. But I know, John, you've got your ear to the ground on a few things. You've heard some conversations that have prompted some questions. What are you hearing?
Yeah, well, it's same, and I love that you brought this up, Jason, because this is one of the things I wanted to ask you. You specifically said, how do we keep from losing our agency to the tools that we have? And so I was listening to Carey Nieuwhof, and he was talking to, I can't remember which one this came from, but they made the analogy of when they were in school, and I still remember this, and they're older than I am, but I still remember in school there was a certain point where they said you are not allowed to use a calculator until you get to a certain age. Yep. And it's part of learning the basic skills and learning how to, how do I add? How do I subtract? How do I multiply? How do I divide? How do I do this without relying on the tool? So what are some of the things that you do that, like in your work with AI, what are some of the things that you do personally that kind of help you set the boundaries, help you kind of prevent yourself from losing that agency? And then kind of a follow-up to that, then what are some of the things that you, in your coaching and in your teaching and your speaking, do you encourage other people to do to help maintain their agency as they're working with these AI tools?
Yeah. It's a really important question to ask and to keep at the forefront of our brains. And, sometimes I learn a lesson by walking down the wrong path for a little bit and realizing that was kind of an aha moment for me, and it was a mistake. So I don't know if I mentioned this when we talked earlier or not, but, been working on the book. And maybe 2 months ago, I had a day where I admit in the book, I'm writing a book on AI, so I'm going to use AI to help me with research. And, sometimes when you're writing, you will have an idea of what you want to say, and you'll map it out, and it just is clunky. It's not something about it, and you just can't find, I don't know why this isn't working, but, and you can take that paragraph you've written, that, page you've written, whatever, and feed it to AI and say, hey, can you help me clarify this or smooth this out a little bit? And, a lot of times it doesn't get it quite right, but it'll help you solve some of those kind of problems. So I had a day where I was writing, and I went to ChatGPT, and I opened up ChatGPT, and I had a blank screen that just said ChatGPT at the top. And my heart started to beat a little bit faster, and I started to sweat, and I'm like, where's all my work? Where's all my stuff? I logged out, logged back in, blank screen. Went to another browser, blank screen. Went to my phone, blank screen. I'm like, oh my gosh, where did ChatGPT go? And then I closed my laptop. I'm like, well, I can't write today. And then I had this moment where I'm like, this is the 13th book I've written. I never had ChatGPT before. I didn't need ChatGPT to write before. Why would I say I can't write today because I can't use ChatGPT? And that for me was a scary moment, because I thought, have I become so reliant on this tool that that I'm allowing it to think for me more than I want it to, or whatever. So, I really believe that we have to be the ones that are driving the conversation and not letting ChatGPT be the one driving the conversation. I have a few principles that I sort of live by as I think about AI, and I probably talked about these last time, but we're going to make it fun for Dan, the editor. The first of them is that, generally speaking, AI should be a do it with you, not a do it for you. It's really easy to sort of just farm it out to AI and let it do the work. And so I think that's the first step on the slippery slope of letting AI, claim our agency. The second one is to understand that when you work with AI, if you want it to do a good job and create content that's usable, and not lose your agency, it's a conversation, not just a query or a command. You know, if I say, write me a sermon, that's a command. Or if I say, can you write me a sermon, that's a query. And if I leave it at that, I'm going to get really shallow, really uninspired content. And it'll do it, but it's not going to be great. And the third thing that maybe is the most important, and these are all very much related to one another, is that you have a soul. AI does not have a soul. And if you don't bring your soul to the conversation, there is no soul in it. So the content it will create is soulless. I don't think that, I'm going to use a fancy seminary word, I don't think that you should have ChatGPT do your exegetical work for you. I think you can use it to do exegetical work. And that's that fancy word is basically just sort of extracting the biblical truth, the principles, the stuff that the good news, the gospel. Like, what do you want to teach somebody? I think it's really important that we work out our theology and wrestle with Scripture and pray and all those kind of things before we jump into ChatGPT, because what happens if you get to ChatGPT too quick, or what at Claude or whatever chatbot you're using, is that you can have it do all the work for you, and then you're not really wrestling in the way that you would without it. So, those are some of the things that I try to safeguard. Another thing that I do, I mentioned this before we started recording, just to practice, and believe it or not, this was my practice even when I was on staff here at Ginghamsburg, when I started using Photoshop, was to pray a prayer before I got started, God, as we co-create in this moment. May my strokes be your strokes as we paint this picture together. And God, I just pray that you would guide me in your Spirit as I'm coming up with ideas, but also guide me in the way that I use this tool so that it might produce things that move and inspire people to be closer to you. And so, I believe that God can work through these tools. It doesn't have a relationship with the Holy Spirit, but you do. And if you bring enough of yourself, you're bringing the Holy Spirit with it, then I think the tool can really help you accomplish more. But if you are shallow in how you approach it and you just ask it to do the work for you and you don't really bring yourself to it, then I don't think the Spirit is in it and in the same way. And I think you can feel that in the content.
I love that word agency because it's actually how I've come to understand poverty, right? That when you're poor, it's not that you have a lack of money. You might, but poverty can come from lack of transportation, lack of job opportunities, lack of, education. And so it's actually defined by the lack of agency to control your own outcomes. And so like if you are outsourcing your agency to a tool, you are a poor designer.
Yes.
In every sense of the word. You're making crap.
Yes.
Because you're not making it at all.
Yeah.
If you want to be a rich designer, you have to have the discipline, the intentionality of maintaining creative control, right? Because it's about controlling your own outcomes. You have something in your head that God has wanted to co-create with you, right? He's put that vision in your head, and so then you engage with tools to create the outcome that you and God have intended together. So I think we need more rich designers in the church. We need more rich designers, and in some ways, this is a defining principle of what it means to be a digital artist, right? Digital artists, it's kind of a new thing to be a digital artist, minus 100 years, digital artists didn't exist, but I can remember when I was graduating college, which at this point is crazy, it's 20 years ago, my Photoshop professor, I had one class in Photoshop, I think my junior year of college at Asbury, he said, very similar to what you're saying now, do not let the computer do the work for you. Like, this is going to be a major temptation as technology continues to advance and digital tools continue to advance, that when you can push a button and something generates, you're saying this 20 years ago, it's going to be wildly tempting to just outsource your brain to the tool and let the tool do the work. You can do that, there's even people who have made careers doing that, but they're poor artists.
Yeah.
They are poor artists. Be a rich artist.
Well,
right?
it's interesting you use that word. A day ago, I was writing a chapter on how to get the most out of a chatbot in the way that you interact with it, because there's a huge difference between just asking it a question and really kind of having a framework where you talk about a bunch of different things with it. And the first thing that I kind of hit, I'm going to come to the one that really pertains to what you're saying here, is that when you're using a chatbot, you have to define the role of that chatbot. You have to help it understand what it is. Is it a creative partner? Is it an editor? Is it an expert in a certain field or whatever? And by telling it that, it makes it interact with the neural network in a different way. So it shuts off the parts of its brain that have nothing to do with that task that you've given it. The second thing is that you want to clearly define what your task is. What do you want it to do? Is that generate an image or write an email or create a chart or, whatever that task might be. But the third one, which really relates to what you're talking about, is to provide rich context. And that comes with you really thinking about what it is that you're trying. What is your vision for whatever it is that you're going to make? When I went to art school, we were very frustrated as students because they made us, before we were allowed to go to the computer, we had to do a lot of written work. So, for instance, one of my projects was that I had to design an 8.5 by 11 black and white ad for Jimmy Dean breakfast sausage. Really inspiring stuff, right? And before I was allowed to go to the computer, I had to write out a page worth of keywords. What are all the keywords that are associated with this product and what I want people to feel when they see it and blah, 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 that kind of thing. And then I had to turn those keywords into written concepts. And I had to do all this written work, because if it didn't work in a concept in a written form, didn't matter what tools I played with. I often call it creating eye candy. You can create really great eye candy, but it's empty calories, right? It's not going to nourish you. It just looks pretty, right? And there are times that's okay, and then after that, we had to actually use sketch pads, and we had to do thumbnail sketches. And it was like, after we did all that, we were allowed to go to the computer. I have found that when I work with people who have not really ever learned that process, that if you go to the computer, you start picking out, what font do I want to use? And what color would be good? I'm going to try this color. And you've left the concept behind. You haven't even thought about the concept yet, And I think the same thing is true with using this generative AI stuff. If you're not careful, you don't bring a concept. And the concept's the most important part. What is it you're trying to convey? What I really love, though, about these tools is that, you and I both have many, many years of experience where we can bring our vision to life because we know how to use Photoshop and what filters do what. And, we understand composition and design and all those kinds of things. What I love is that somebody that has a vision in their head can learn how to use words to describe what they're after, and then have the ability to create something from that.
Let me give you a really great recent example for me. Okay, one of your original mediums is illustrating.
Yes.
Like hand drawing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You're a great illustrator. That's kind of like your baseline creative medium. I could never draw anything better than a stick figure. I can have a picture in my head, but I for whatever reason, it would not translate to a pencil. However, I was just working with a client who has they're building a new farm homestead, organic products, eggs and microgreens, and they had a really clear vision for a new logo that they asked me to create, but it had to deal with hand-drawn fruit and vegetable elements. I'm not an illustrator, but I took that concept into Firefly through Adobe and wrote up a prompt with the correct filters that generated a vintage hand-drawn doodle that then I could vectorize in Illustrator and color and, created a really nice logo. I would never have been able to do that. I had a vision in my head,
Yeah.
right? I didn't think I handed agency over to it. I mean, I had more agency using the AI tool than I did through my own hand.
Yes.
In a way that was helpful, right? That still allowed me to maintain creative control of the vision and the outcome. But man, like, what a handshake that was for me. It was awesome.
And that's part of why I have been so excited about this Udio app. Is one of the little songs that I made just for fun. Again, as I was exploring, like, how's this thing work? Was I don't remember exactly what the words were, but it was like, if you have a song in your heart, just put in the words and we'll make it start, or something like. I don't remember exactly what. Not like really transformational lyrics or anything, but it then turned it into a song, and so I love the thought. I mean, there's a downside to this for people like you and I. I make my living creating imagery and video and all that. But I think at the end of the day, especially in the church, there are people who will never be able to afford someone like me. And even when I'm giving significant discounts, like what I offer is just not going to be prioritized in a budget. And so I love the thought that somebody could learn how to. It's the back in my day, when I was at Ginghamsburg, we were talking a lot about using screens in worship, and I was really trying to help people see the value in using imagery to help people better understand the gospel. And we probably talked about this before, but there's a study that finds that we're 65% visual learners as a culture, and learning increases by 400% when you use image. And so, for me, it wasn't that screens were just a nice little fun add-on or whatever, or that we could put the song lyrics up, but that it was a way for people to learn in a deeper way. And I saw it as sort of the democratization of media back then, because you didn't have to be a television producer. I mean, we could have screens in our churches, and it would allow us to speak with a different sort of voice. But now with AI, that's taken to a completely different level, because now I don't even have to be a skilled artisan that, which again, there's some downsides to that too. I mean, it's not all upside, but one of the fears I hear most often articulated is that AI is going to take everybody's job. And I've heard this quote so many times, I don't even know who to attribute it to, because I've heard so many people say it, but you've probably heard this by now. AI is not going to take your job, but someone who uses AI might. And so I think that if people are willing to lean in and learn to use the tools, that's a very good thing. The other concern that I address in the book is just that when, and again, I may have said this the last time we were together, but there was a very palpable fear that when cameras were invented, that artistry would stop, that nobody who's going to take the time to paint a picture or to sculpt something out of clay, or do woodworking or whatever, when you can snap a picture and it's instant. And the research I did, I found that photography was not considered an art until the 1920s, and it was invented in the late 1800s. So it was a while before it was seen as art. And the reason that people said it's not art is that it's mechanical. A machine is creating that image. And so we didn't even consider that there was somebody on the other side of that machine, right, who had an idea in their head or saw something that is unique and beautiful. And Dan, you're an incredible photographer, and I see the pictures you take, and I think, man, he really captured something there, that there's an artistry and a skill and something God breathed in that. The camera's not doing it itself. I could take the same camera that you have and not take pictures that are as good as the pictures that you take, because there's an artistry there.
I could take the same open chat window and write a prompt and not get anywhere near the results that you're producing.
Well, I mean, so there's, I think that whole agency question becomes really important because we can get lazy.
Yep.
And again, I may have said this before, but I caution folks who are using AI against becoming the passengers on the axiom of, which is from the movie WALL-E, where AI delivers all their food and their clothes and that takes them around the ship. And by the time they get back to Earth, they can no longer walk because their muscles are so atrophied because they've let robots and AI do everything for them that when it's time for them to walk again, they can barely do it. And so we don't want to lose our spiritual muscles, our critical thinking, all that stuff.
Problem is, for a lot of people, that sounds like heaven.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So,
which then here I'm going to go philosophical on us. It's like, when we get to heaven, we will be our most fully realized versions of ourselves, which means like you said, some people are like, oh, that'd be perfect. I don't have to do anything. But it's like, no, we're going to be man fully alive. We're going to be woman fully alive. We're going to be as God intended us to be. And it brings us back to, we're going to be co-creating. We're going to be like, there's the cartoonized image. Oh yeah, we're all going to be singing with the angels. And it's like, yes, hallelujah, we're going to do that. But at the same time, like, that's not everything. Like there's going to be so much more. And just like, I listened to a lot of Carey Nieuwhof, and he makes this, I've heard him make it several times. He said, I saw John Mayer in concert, and it was like, I don't know if he has any ounce of belief in God at all, in his soul, but when you hear that man play guitar, you see him on a different level, because it's like, that is the glory of God being realized through what he's doing. And so it's that same idea. It's, we're partnering with God in this. It's not, and I loved how you told us, and you said it again, but before we recorded, and then just like, that's stuck in my head, that idea where you say, before you even open the window, before you even start, you say, Holy Spirit, lead me as I do this. Holy Spirit, guide me. And I think for everything, like not even just with what we're doing with AI, but it's that, like, we have to carry that in everything we do, whether it's preparing a podcast, whether it's writing a prompt, whether it's writing a book, whether it's designing a logo. It's like, no, God, I want to do this for your glory, not for mine, not for what I want to see, but it's how do we become that fully alive where we are hand in hand co-creating.
Well, and I also think that it's important to remember that the creativity that is hardwired into all of us is there because we're creating God's likeness. Mm-hmm. And that means that someone like John Mayer, who may not understand or articulate or can articulate that gift that he has came from God, is there because God created John in God's likeness, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's also something we have to keep in mind for the critics of AI. We have to also remember that God created the people who coded these things and gave us these gifts in order to create tools to help us and so on. And so
if I was born I was born 40 years ago. If I was born 100 years ago, literally 40 years ago, I was born. If I was born 100 years ago, like, I would have been born in the wrong era, because all of my giftedness is geared towards digital design, right? For such a time as this, God created me to be me. Yeah,
absolutely. So, and the other thing I tell people all the time is that AI did not sneak up on God. Mm-mm. And all of a sudden, God was surprised by what we created, right? God has dominion, and God is sovereign over all things. And so, now, all that said, AI can be used for good things, and it can be used. It's a neutral tool, so someone can take it and do bad things with it. But to suggest that it's evil and it's the devil and all those things, I think just doesn't take into account the full picture that God created us. God created us to be creative. God knew we were going to be. God encouraged us to be creative, and so we've done that, and we've gotten to this place. But again, that's why I talk about this whole idea of the balanced approach, because if we're not careful, but the same thing is true. Like you can use Google in a way that's harmful to your agency. We can go download a sermon and preach it and never bring any of ourselves to it, and that's just as bad.
I used Photoshop to put my face on my mom's body.
That's fun.
And I liked it, but I think she thought it was harmful.
Yeah. Well, I made my mom cry with a song, but not in the way that was a fun, nostalgic cry. Because there was a story from my childhood where my sister and I, in the morning, were messing around, didn't get out to the bus in time. She's like, "You better not miss that bus." And so we went down, and bus was pulling away. So my kindergarten-year-old sister, and I was in second grade, decided rather than face the wrath of my mom, who probably wasn't really going to do much of anything other than she said, "You better not miss that bus." We walked to school, and we walked up a very, very large hill, and you can cut all this, but my sister had to go to the bathroom and couldn't walk anymore, so I carried her up the hill. So I wrote this. I used Udio. I made a song called "I Carried You," and the background is "Scary Mom, what would she do?" or whatever. My sister was in tears, like in nostalgic tears for like that really, warmed my heart. My mom was in different type of tears because we remembered her as a scary, mean mom or whatever. So
unethical use of AI is different than unmoral.
That's true.
Jason.
So again, you can feel free to cut all that, but that.
All right. So okay, let's take a shift for the last part of the podcast here. I want to go practical. Just a list of helpful tools. What are the things you're using? What are you finding helpful? What are the things to avoid? I'm sure you've encountered some really dumb, crappy tools out there too that wouldn't be worth our money. Church leaders want to know where to invest. So right now, I've invested in an experimental $20 a month subscription to ChatGPT.
Yep.
Right. Might keep it, might not. But I know churches have limited budgets, limited resources. Where do churches need to be investing? I think that's the heart of my question.
Yeah.
You're using a lot of stuff. You're in exploration mode.
Yes.
What are you discovering?
That there are too many tools for me to be able to afford.
Yeah, right. I think we're all running into that.
Right.
That's why the question is which one of these tools do I put my money in?
I'll share a few of them with you. First of all, if I had only $20 to spend, I probably would go with ChatGPT Pro, mainly because it supports both images and text. Mm-hmm. And also, some people don't realize that you can code with it, you can write HTML with it. It'll build charts. It'll do all kinds. You can analyze data with it. One of the things that I do in one of my trainings, just to show people what's possible, is take an Excel file of the last year's attendance records, and it'll make charts, and you can basically chat with your data and say, what was our best Sunday of the year, and what was the trend, throughout the year, and you can see when there was this, snow storm that weekend, and there's what happened to our attendance. And so anyway, there's, it's great for that. If I had a little bit more money to spend, I had the time to learn it, I'm an enormous fan, of Midjourney, which is the most realistic, most organic image generator that's out there. You can create things that you cannot tell they're not a photo, and except for that people have 8 fingers or whatever, but and that's not. It's even gotten better at that. But DALL-E, which is part of ChatGPT, creates decent images, but they have a sort of computer generated look to them. They're not very photorealistic. everything that I create with, well, most things that I create with Midjourney when I'm trying to get photoreal look so photoreal you wouldn't know. And that's great for churches who want to like tell biblical stories. I mean, you want Jesus walking on the water. You want Jesus walking on the water with a life raft in his hand. You want Jesus walking on the water, but it's on the moon. You can do all those things, and it'll render it like there was a photographer there in that moment. So it does have a little bit of a learning curve. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your age, it runs on Discord. So if you don't know Discord, and I only learned Discord so I could use, and I don't really know Discord, but I mean, I know it enough to be able to use it. So that would be the second tool that I would encourage folks to check out. If you have no budget at all, though, you can use Bing's image creator for free. Bing's image creator uses the same model as DALL-E. So if you don't have the DALL-E paid subscription, you can use it. It doesn't seem to generate images. The model doesn't seem as sophisticated on the free one. So you still get people that have weird looking faces and sometimes too many fingers and stuff like that. My mantra is always just wait 6 months. Because in 6 months, all that stuff will be fixed. I mean, 6 months to a year. One of the tools that I really, really love, and my apologies to all of my friends who do professional voiceover work, but 11 Labs is unbelievable for creating voiceovers. And churches oftentimes don't have the budget to hire voiceover artists. Back when I was on staff here at Ginghamsburg, we used to spend $750 for one voiceover session, and we'd have to hire somebody in a studio and do a phone patch where you'd listen to them read, and we'd have to book studio time and the whole 9 yards. In the last 10 years or so, I started using a service called Voice 123, where I would hire a voiceover. You put your voiceover out, and I might have to spend $250, and I would get a bunch of reads, and then I'd pick the person that I liked the best, and then I would direct them and get back the voiceover and then use it. But then when 11 Labs came out, and last year I used this extensively for one of the United Methodist annual conferences I work with, I was able to pick a voice and use it for all the videos that I did. I don't have to say, I don't really like that read, and then call somebody and say, I need you to reread these 3 lines. And then it takes a day for them to do it, and then they have to upload it. And then, the process is cumbersome and it takes forever. I can just reprompt it. I can change the parameters, and it'll spit out a new voiceover for me, and it's awesome. But now there's this new feature, which is, again, I cannot believe we get to live in this time. I can now read the text, and I can read it soft where it needs to be soft, and I can get excited when I need it to get excited, and then I can apply the voice afterwards. You can do speech to speech. So now I can be a female voice, or I can have a deep, resonant, announcer voice. And whereas before you had to type everything in, and things would kind of sound good, but they might sound a little bit robotic like that. Now I can read it however I want to read it, and then apply the voice after the fact, which is incredible. Again, if I was a voiceover artist, I wouldn't feel so hot about that. But for churches who are trying to do promo videos, churches who want to read scripture in worship and have it be inspired and that kind of thing, 11 Labs. I think the cheapest version, by the way, I didn't say this about Midjourney. The cheapest Midjourney plan is $8 a month if you pay for the year, and $10 a month if you pay month to month. So it's worth trying it for a month. 11 Labs you can try for the first month for $1, and then $5 is the cheapest plan. I'm on a plan that's a little more than that because I use it more extensively. But for most churches, the $5 a month plan would definitely save you. I mentioned Udio. Right now, Udio is free. It won't be free for long. I use another app that preceded that called Suno, Suno, and I don't recall what I spent for the year, but you can actually generate 5 tracks for free every day right now on that plan. And what's really cool is both Suno and Udio have instrumental versions now. So you can click instrumental, which means that for people like you and I who edit video, I could drop a subscription and you wouldn't believe the music that it's creating. There are a lot of other tools I could talk about, but I'll just mention one other tool that I really like. It's called Magi, like the three Magi who go to see Jesus, Magai. And Magi is this app that has all sorts of things built into it, including multiple chatbots, 3 different image generators, and all of that. And so it has ChatGPT, the same version of ChatGPT, well, the API version of ChatGPT in it. So you can pay for that subscription, and those chatbots will even talk to each other. So if I want to start with Claude, which is a little more straight and narrow, doesn't make stuff up as much, it's, I forget there's a word that they use for it, but it's, the goal of it is to stay very much on the straight and narrow and to not veer off. That means it's not always as creative. But then ChatGPT sometimes will go off the rails and make stuff up wholesale. But anyway, you could start with Claude and have Claude talk to ChatGPT because it's in a thread and it thinks actually it made the other comments, and it's great for that. And then it's got Stable Diffusion, which is another really good generator, Leonardo built in, and I think there's one other one. But Magi you can sign up for, and actually I have a referral link that is, I think, bit.ly/Magi sign up. If you want to go that way, or you can go straight to them. But I work with, I do cohorts, and the guy that created that program has come on my cohorts and talked to people about chatting and stuff. So those are some of my favorites. Honorable mention, Leonardo.ai is an image generator that you can use for free. You get so many generations for free. If you have a beefier computer, you can load a local copy of Stable Diffusion. You said, what are some of the things to stay away from? Yeah. Honestly, and I might make some folks mad, but I see all of these, I see more and more apps springing up that are like, sermon prep apps and biblical this or that apps. And it's like, I'm not sure you need a subscription for something like that when you can create a custom GPT if you have the pro version of ChatGPT, and have it become your sermon writing partner or expert or whatever. I mean, all of those apps are really kind of wrappers for, they're using a GPT type structure underneath, and they've really just kind of created custom instructions that are going to help you look up scripture and, that kind of thing. So,
and collect your data.
Yeah.
And send it to China.
Here's one that's sort of a mixed bag. It is actually really great, but there's some dangers in it. There is a website called Civit AI, Civit AI. Maybe it's civit.ai. If you look it up, you'll find it. There are models that work with Stable Diffusion that people keep tweaking, and you can actually run them right off the website to create images. And what's really unique about them is that, like, they'll train, we've got our snack sitting in front of us. They'll train it like on how to create authentic looking bags of snacks. So they'll just feed it tons and tons of pictures of that, creates what is called a LoRa file. I don't have in my head at the moment what LoRa stands for, but LORA stands for something. And so they create these very specialized image generators. So like I've got one that's my favorite. You can make anything into an action figure, which is kind of fun. So I can prompt, Jesus action figure, and it'll put it in a box, and, it'll maybe be made of plastic and the whole 9 yards, which is silly but fun. I've seen like Play-Doh. I've seen pencil drawings, that kind of thing. So that's a really cool site. The downside is that if you don't turn on the safe filters, there is very much scantily clad and even worse. I think there's some kind of people have trained it to, draw naked people. So it's not hard once you get there to turn, and it starts off with, I think, asking you what kind of things you would like to see, and you can turn those filters off so you never see them. But there are bad actors out there. And then one other thing that I'll just mention again, if you have a computer that's got a little bit of heft to it, either Mac or PC, there is an app called Pinocchio. It's Pinocchio KIO, so it's spelled Ponikio, and it basically is like a shell which will load all the dependencies on your computer, and then you can download apps like Stable Diffusion. One of my favorites is an app called Face Fusion, where I can take a video clip, and with one photo, I can create a deep fake, which is mostly just party trick fun. Like when I'm doing cohorts, I'll show people that. But it's also really good too if like you're trying to get a consistent image of Jesus, and you've generated an image and you like it. You can upload the image. You could prompt any image of Jesus. It's not going to look like the same Jesus every time, and then you can actually replace the face using this app, and it'll match all the shading and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, Pinocchio has a whole library of AI apps that would run then within it. You need a lot of space on your computer and all that, but it's good. So I could go on and on. The last one I'll mention is a sort of a clearinghouse for AI apps called futuretools.io. Matt Wolf is an influencer. He's one of the people I watch every week. Talks about all the things that are coming out, but he runs a website that he's just got a plethora of apps, and people rate them and rank them, and so you can see which ones are getting the most. And a lot of these apps are open source and free, especially on his website. So at least for now, that you can experiment and try things and get your feet wet, and then see where you want to go with your money in the future.
Thanks, man. That's a great list.
Well, and you know, believe it or not, I didn't share a lot of things, so that's
yeah.
That's the truncated
You're
list.
keeping some of your trade secrets, right?
Not really, but
it's changing every day.
Yeah.
It is.
So fast.
Well, and what's crazy when you think about it is by the time this actually airs,
yes,
some of those things will be next iterations or outdated, and like you said, wait 6 months.
Right.
And
Well, and the thing just to keep your eye open for, and this is going to be both incredibly awesome and incredibly scary, is that OpenAI, who makes both ChatGPT and DALL-E, the image generator, has a new video model coming out sometime later this year called Sora. It was big news. Most of the AI video generation stuff right now isn't very good. Like, you can take an image and it'll sort of bring it to life, but it looks janky and weird. Sora can create like a 30-second video that is, I mean, so close to, it's going to really change the stock video industry, I think, because you'll be able to generate anything you have in your head. But hopefully by the time this comes out, or somewhere after, not long after it comes out, you'll be able to check out Sora. And I don't know how it's going to work, if it'll work with your Pro GPT subscription or not. But I think 2024 and into late 2024 is going to be the year of AI video.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, you know. Every new day brings a new emergence of technology. We saw it with the internet, that multimedia at the time became the internet. Like, the internet was the umbrella that brought everything into one container, you know. And I think we're seeing a new convergence of individual technologies that will be coming together, because you've got video generative tools, image generative tools, text generative tools. You've got things like LiDAR scanning. You've got Unreal engines creating like 3D environments for video games, like a split second. You know, you can create voiceovers with AI. So you can picture a future where all of these tools come together with VR and AR and like all of these things that are coming together to create a really highly digitally immersive reality. And so things are interesting on the horizon.
I want to just share one other thought that I think we really have to be thinking about in the church. And again, I hope I might have said this last time, so we'll see. But in a world where all those things are possible, where I can create my own worlds, where I mean, in a way, you're almost your own God. Like you can create anything. You think it, you see it, you believe it, whatever, and it happens. You can manifest it in a sense. What is that going to mean for the church? I think we've all had moments in our lives where we've prayed and God hasn't always given us the answer we were looking for. Sometimes God's answer is no, or sometimes God's answer is wait. But with AI, I can go and get any answer at any time. If I don't like the way something is, I can change it, all those kinds of things. What does that mean for how we communicate the gospel and help people see God? And I guess I said last thought, but here's another sort of related thought, and that is, what do we do now in a world I have a little section in the book where I'm calling it the post-truth era. Because, now, it used to be seeing is believing, and now you can make anything. So I can't believe what I see anymore, which I think is going to could create an opportunity for the church where people are longing for authenticity again, not artificial. And, we don't have it anymore in our politics. We're struggling and we're divided in the church. Our culture is kind of messy. I think we are longing for authenticity in relationships. And I just wonder, where might the church lean in and say, we're the place where you can find that, where you don't have to wonder if it's generated or if it's, whatever. So I don't know. That's the big thought I'm wrestling with and trying to figure out, how do we retool for that?
My 16-year-old cousin came to visit recently, and we got to talking about video games, which eventually got into new technologies and AI. And he said, I will never use AI, ever. That is not art. No. Period. Hard stop. What does this mean?
Yeah.
Is AI for the younger generation, or is he just clamoring for authenticity, just like you said?
Yeah.
And I think you're right. That's the church's hard line right now, is like the younger generations, their BS meters up. So like we have to maintain agency.
Yes.
Right? To be co-creators with God and not to hand over our agency to tools who are then going to convey truth or half-truth or post-truth or whatever it is to the younger generations.
I also think you can't underestimate the impact of COVID and the things that we lost and what it meant to the world around us to have that 2 or 3 year break where we couldn't be in community in the same way. And, people would get online and they put filters on, so you didn't even know what they looked like. Their skin was all smoothed out, and, you can portray an image online that's not really you. And, authenticity is just, I think, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the BS meter for young people is pretty high. There's just a high skepticism. And last night I went for a walk with my daughter, and as we're out, real quick on Udio, I made a song up about the two of us going on a walk, and she's like, Dad, do you have to bring AI on our walk with us? And I'm like, honey, it's already with us on our phone. But she's like, I don't like AI. I think it's going to take everybody's jobs. And I'm like, well, I understand what you're saying, but I said, this is just the beginning. I said, by the time you're an adult, we're going to have things that we can't even imagine. So I do, and my son is sort of is an AI skeptic too. Like he loves to draw and write and all that kind of stuff. But recently, when I did a couple things for him that I used AI on, it sort of changed his perception, because he's got a character that he's made up. He does these comic books and stuff, and I made a theme song for his character, and he's been playing it nonstop for the last several days. And it's like, again, when you can bring what's real in your head to life, there's an upside to that. But there's also a line that I think we have to be careful about, and we don't want to cross.
So Jason, how do people get a hold of you? How can they find you if they have questions about AI, to book you for a training? How do they get in touch?
If you go to ChatGPT and type in, no, I'm kidding. Although I did have someone recently introduce me at a seminar, and they asked ChatGPT for my bio, and it gave them a pretty accurate bio, which was wild that ChatGPT apparently knows who I am. We spend enough time together.
Once ChatGPT knows who you are, you've made it.
Yeah, I guess so. People can reach out to me, mail, MAIL, at midnightoilproductions.com, or if you're on Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com/midnightoilproductions. You can also go to my website, which is a disaster right now, and that I need to have AI rebuild for me. Actually, I have somebody working on it, but midnightoilproductions.com, and I would be more than happy. I will say I do lead AI cohorts, so I usually have up to 10 churches in my cohorts, and over 6 months we do 6 one-hour Zoom calls, and then every church gets a one-on-one, and we're just learning how to use these tools together. And I've not only been able to help people learn, but I've learned from the people in my cohorts, and that's part of the fun of cohort learning. So feel free to check it out.
On behalf of myself, Dan Bracken, and John Werledge, make it happen. You've got all the tools you need. Keep the agency to yourself.
Didn't John break the mold?